Hello, dears, this is the StorySculpt channel and you are listening to a story Hoops of Fire by Khalida Husain. This story is translated by Aamer Hussein, taken from the book KAHANI Short Stories by Pakistani Women, edited by Aamer Hussein. So one by one the four of us embrace Salima. We shed the requisite amount of sympathetic tears, we draw on experience and hearsay to tell her true stories and countless tales of other happenings, crises and catastrophes. "I'd warned you," says Rafat in her usual manner. "You could see it in his face, damn him," says Zakia, examining her face in her pocket mirror. "Yes, send him to hell, it's hardly worth ruining your good looks by weeping over him. Have you been using that moisturizer, by the way? Your skin looks so dry." "Don't talk such rubbish," Rabia snaps. "What we ought to be thinking about is a course of action." "Yes, a plan." "Action? And what can you expect to do now that it's all over, when it's already happened, when it keeps on happening, will continue to happen, it's been going on since the beginning of time, will probably go on forever. God, what fools you are." I don't bother to speak. I watch the weeping Salima, her torrents of tears, I am absorbed in my envy of her good fortune. Such a display of grief, so direct, so simple, in these times of ours, so much agony and all because she's been abandoned. So women still possess such treasures of tears, of emotions? A ring of bright blue and yellow lights, of seething, screaming lava, revolves in my head, like those hoops of fire you see in circuses, which people or dogs leap through to the spectators' wild applause, while useless, hypocritical, cowardly beings like me keep wondering what they feel. I shudder. A noose tightens about my neck. Enough. I consider complimenting Salima on her treasure of tears, but I settle for silence. "So you really suffer so deeply, and all because a man has abandoned you? And you, too, will you leap through hoops of fire and ask for applause, while hypocrites like me keep on wondering what you really feel? Listen, you do know Farida, don't you? Now we know what happened to her. All those years go by and then X turns up and tells her his sole intellectual rapport in the world is with her, and she does have half a dozen children to console her and brighten her life. After all, he has a wife who makes those divine rice dishes." Zakia is still trying to console Salima. "Yes, and you know that Farida's recently set up an association?" She keeps asking me to join her, too." "Association?" Stifling a yawn, I finally speak. "Yes, to get rid of the plague of intelligent, aware women in our society. She thinks that if some girl shows contagious symptoms of an overdeveloped intellect, she ought to be married off when she's barely reached puberty so that she can produce lots of healthy babies at the perfect age, fulfill her destiny, take her place in the scheme of things, dress up in pretty clothes and chant songs of praise for the Prophet in the company of women for the rest of her life." A faint smile plays on Salima's lips. She retrieves a fragile scented handkerchief from her elegant handbag and raises it to her eyes. "Marvelous." Rafat is delighted to see Salima smiling. "Take me, I've got 2 daughters, if I don't get them married off by the time they're 16 you can change my name. I've even made a vow." "What? And when did you become religious?" Rabia is apprehensive. "No great harm in making a vow, is there? If your prayers are granted, you pay up, well and good, and if not, what do you lose? Just look at all of you, merrily chattering away because you can afford to. You have homes, husbands, children, there's a sense of great purpose in your lives, but what about me? I'm so attractive and still I'm stuck in a lonely, gloomy room surrounded only by pictures. I have to kill time, kill life, murder it, I'd say." "Don't go away, Salima, sit down, you're living in a world of dreams. You know what they say about distant drums, it's hardly the paradise you make out, you know, married life, I mean. When 2 people live together." The cue for a gale of laughter from Rabia. "Yes, what you need for those special moments are your deodorants, radiant teeth, fresh and fragrant breath, bright eyes, and what really happens is that after a few weeks, her words dissolve in another fit of giggles. "Oh, for God's sake, Rabia." "Well, I'm right after all, after a few weeks a demon called togetherness creeps up to strangle you, erases your identity, and you forget those bacteria-killing toothpastes, you think that spending money on scent is an atrocious waste, and then comes the grand revelation, the man beside you sweats so heavily." "Oh, do shut up, Rabia." Rafat restrains her mirth. "But in spite of all that, you don't have to kill your time staring at silent, lifeless pictures." And Salima stops in mid-sentence. We dispose of our half-full cups of tea, prepare to disband. It occurs to me, for a moment, to stop Salima, to take her with me, but I restrain myself because the world is so full of noise that I can't hear a word, and if I could I wouldn't understand. Sulima, I recognize that place where you're stranded. I know it so well. You're like a part of myself that's been released from the prison of the present moment. That loneliness of which you speak can also be a haven. You've laid down your weapons too soon. Solitude is protective, pacifying a mother's bosom. It's the loneliness beyond that never ends, is limitless, the twilight region of time that spreads and enfolds everything that each of us has to face alone, yes, each one, in the midst of silent, lifeless pictures or in the shadow of vital, fortunate others. The loneliness of that place is relentless. It tells you for the first time that you only belong to yourself because you're separate from everyone else. You are yourself only because the other is separate from you. And that is why, every hour and every moment, you try to close those gaps and distances between yourself and the other. You're lost in the music of harmony and union, but the music and the ecstatic bond are equally unattainable. And knowing this is like turning your face away from happiness. I pick up my handbag and leave. Perhaps we're all sent here on a mission of penance, which we pursue without end. And still we know that we haven't paid the price of our gains or of our losses. It keeps on rising. God spare us. Again the flame flares in my head, circling, revolving, rising, spreading. I have to leap through it, in this carnival emptied of entertainers. An act I have to perform alone, with no one to watch or applaud me, no one to bear witness. But without this flaring flame I have no existence. I am a non-presence. That's the sum of the story. From the circling, soaring, searing flame I came to know that I am, and I exist because on the face of the volcano my name is inscribed. I am seated in front of the doctor with thick white hair, soft voice and gentle hands. On the table between us, a miscellany of X-ray photographs and medical reports. Everything seems to be fine here, Mrs. There's nothing wrong with you. I knew that I was perfectly well, doctor. Well, then you're a well-educated lady, he says softly. Yes, sir, I'm an educated ignorant lady, so my healers say, well, then, lady, if you're alive, she must have been dead for over 100 years, an ignorant educated lady of the sort that this society churns out by the day. That's the diagnosis, at least. Listen, if you don't have any real worries of your own, then you could do worse than thinking about the state of the nation, do some charity work, worry a little less about your children and get involved with a cause instead. But first of all you have to stop thinking about yourself. Look at the wretched of the earth. You could always join a religious circle, find yourself a guru, a spiritual guide. Thank you very much. I gather up the mass of papers, stand up and leave. A guru, a guide, you make me laugh. I am one myself. Then I think of Tessina. Once when we met, years ago, she'd said, looking, as usual, at some distant point over my shoulder, what, after all, is the root of your problem? Bread? Clothes? A roof over your head? Those healthy problems, I thought, that make you human and clothe you in flesh, that tie you to the ground and keep you alive, a living, breathing organism, that change you from a shadow, a husk, into a thing of weight, those matters that change the map of the world. What is your problem then? Tessina was persistent. Just being? It's beyond your comprehension, Tessina, a matter for once that you can't understand. Non-existence, negation within negation. A vision, perhaps, that I alone among my loved ones can see, which, against my will, I can't share with them, because it appears in its own solitude, the solitude that is the destiny of us all, which was given to my parents and their progenitors, on and on since the first man, before the beginning of time. We have to confront it. We must. Alone. Well, then, Tessina said, annoyed by my silence, what I've heard is true. You've developed a retrograde sensibility, you've become superstitious, decadent and pessimistic. I suggest you start to think about the third world and connect yourself with all the backward, deprived, sick nations, that way you can still redeem yourself. She gathered up her bundle of books and took off. Third world, and am I not answerable to that world, beyond the third world, that lives within me? Answerable to a wasteland of anguish and sorrow, for my cry, I am here, is imprisoned in my ribcage. I have to leap into the soaring flame, though I have no witness. And now, tonight, it lies before me. I rise from my bed, it lies in wait for me. What is it? What's the matter? Arif asks, taking my icy hand. You're seeing things? Fantasizing? Hallucinating? No. It's not a hallucination, just stay by me. I have to leap in. I hang on his hand. And mountains, like balls of cotton, fly on the wind, and the earth spills forth its hidden treasures, and the gates of the seven heavens are thrown open, and then the fiery hoop of burning colors appears, rising, spreading, hissing, spitting sparks, and I become a moth and dance around it, around the erupting volcano I sway, for I have reached my destination, for all time, forever. And I am not afraid, for the fire is my destiny. Look, I dance with dread and hope and dread I await the moment when the flame must submit to become my savior.